National security issues are being injected back into the race for the White House tonight as war games in Iran capture the attention of the West, while an apparent hostage crisis involving Americans develops on the ground in Egypt. And we begin with Iran. And earlier today, the White House announced that it plans to impose new sanctions on Tehran in response to the regime's refusal to abandon their nuclear program. Now, this announcement comes just days after Defense Secretary Leon Panetta revealed that he fears that Israel may preemptively strike Iran in April, May, or June of this year. Now, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney was asked if today's sanctions were in response to those fears. Let's listen to this.
There has been a steady increase in our sanctions activity, and this is part of that escalation, and it's not related to specifically to that issue or the questions about it.
And while tensions between Israel and Iran now near a boiling point, a hostage crisis is underway at this hour in Cairo, Egypt. Now, today, military leaders announced that 19 American citizens will stand trial for allegedly inciting unrest in the wake of Hosni Mubarak's fall from power. And complicating things, one of the accused happens to be related to an American cabinet member. Sam LaHood, the son of Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood, was the very first name released by a state-owned newspaper earlier today. He, along with 18 other pro-democracy activists, have now been barred from leaving the country.
This is, as we've said before, a very unique and unusual situation. This is a situation that is, as we've made absolutely clear, gaining the attention at the highest levels of both of our governments. So I don't want to speculate on what might happen going forward. We have a report that formal charges will be filed. In the interim, our ambassador has invited those who are affected, who are still in country, to use the embassy grounds to give them a little bit of space to work with their lawyers.
Joining me now in studio with reaction to these volatile situations, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, how are you?
How are you?
You know, the president said this was a democracy movement. Now we have radical Islamists have come to power. They were just last week talking about speeding up aid to the Muslim Brotherhood in the new Islamic government. And now we've got a hostage situation, as far as I'm concerned. And they're going to put these Americans on trial.
Yeah, I mean, this is the risk that everyone was worried about and warned about with pushing over Mubarak so quickly and not having any plan, not having any real sense of who's taking over. And there's no question that right now they're acting like, it feels perilously similar to what was going on in Iran in 1979, 1978, 79.
Yeah, all right. And then we got an Egyptian gunman kidnapping 2 American women. Last week, it was Egypt announced it's going to put these guys on trial, as I said. But we're talking about giving them any aid. Right. Why would we give a new radical Islamic government aid?
Yeah, I have no idea, and I don't understand why we haven't reacted more strongly to the fact that they've held these people illegally. They're going to put them on trial illegally. This is clearly some kind of an insane Islamic extremist act that's going on, and we're reacting sort of nonchalantly to it without the appropriate pressure that we could bring on the Egyptian government and on some of the other Arab governments to pressure them.
How is it possible that the president was telling the American people this democracy movement is a great thing? How is it they didn't know? And I was saying at the time, I hope they're right, public opinion in Egypt showed that most Egyptians, 75%, wanted a theocracy, wanted Sharia law.
The president has no clue as to what's going on there. I think he's living in a fairly naive world. I mean, in fact, that's his whole situation with Libya, which he gets a lot of credit for. In Libya, he led by following, which means not leading.
Lead from behind.
I don't have a sense of what's going on, so I'm just going to kind of go where the wind takes me. And unfortunately, I mean, those of us who I think have a little more knowledge of the Middle East realize that you're unleashing some really dangerous forces here. I mean, I think Hillary Clinton's first reaction was to stick with Mubarak. Then I think she got pushed aside. And not because she likes Mubarak. Nobody liked Mubarak. He's a bad dictator.
Kept the peace
but
with Israel for 30 years.
But he was a bad dictator that had a good relationship with Israel, a good relationship with the United States, didn't pose a threat to us, and wasn't taking hostages. Right?
What do we do?
Right.
What do we do with Iran? Pursuing nuclear weapons, threatening the world's oil supply, telling our battleships to get out of the Straits of Hormuz, planning assassinations of foreign ambassadors, on American soil, and threatening the world at every point. And funding terror and killing Americans.
I think the president has a lot of work to do with Iran, because I think he's created a lot of this problem with all that silliness about wanting to negotiate with them and begging to negotiate with them and not supporting.
He said it was a tiny country, Iran. They're not a threat. Those are the words he said. Iran's a tiny country. They're not a threat.
Yeah, well, go tell that to our military in Iraq who were being killed by Iranians, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. That was another naive statement. That I don't know where that came from. Iran has been a threat now since 1978, 1979. It has specifically participated in killing Americans, and it is by far the biggest sponsor of terrorism, state sponsor of terrorism in the world. So to say they're not a threat is actually mind-blowing. I mean, it means you're living in some other universe that isn't the one that we're living in. But we should be making it very, very clear that we are prepared. Not in this reluctant way, but we're prepared to use military action if we have to use it, and that we're not shrinking back from it, and it isn't going to be really difficult for us to do it. And we should not be relying on Israel and threatening them with the possibility of Israel doing it. Look, we've got the largest military force on earth. The military force that we have is gigantic compared to Iran, and we should be prepared to use it to stop them from becoming a nuclear power.
Shouldn't we be at the point now where we've got to take out their nuclear sites? Aren't we pretty much there?
I can't tell you if we are there or not, because I don't have the details about how far along they are. Here's where we're not. We're not in their minds, meaning they don't believe we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. They've seen a weak president. They've seen a president that they can ridicule. He can ask for talks, and they can basically say, we don't want to talk to you.
Right.
A president that, when they had the Green Movement, any other American president would have supported that movement in a second. Here we have dissidents. We've got this whole situation with Camp Ashraf, where we have these people who oppose the regime in Iran, who are being killed by Maliki in Iraq, and the administration doing nothing about it.
Let me ask you this: as you look at the presidential race, a lot of times we may talk about the economy up until Election Day, but the next president, his biggest challenge may be national security. You never know. Where are you on the race? You endorsed Newt Gingrich. You're supporting.
No.
I'm sorry.
I haven't endorsed anybody.
I thought you were supporting.
I've said some very nice things about Newt.
Okay.
I've said some nice things about Romney. I've indicated that I think that Newt has a bolder, stronger plan on taxes, on the economy.
Can he come back?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. He has before. I mean, he's defied the odds before, so I think there's a chance he can come back. And I think there's still room for a race here because so few delegates have been won. I think it's looking very good for Governor Romney right now, but I don't think it's over. And I think a lot can be accomplished by a good race if they discuss issues, if they talk about the things that they would do differently than Obama, than attacking each other so much. We now know the differences between them. The attacks that offended me the most was when Romney became a Democrat to attack Newt, and when Newt became a Democrat to attack Romney. I think attacking Romney over Bain, stupid, dumb, and you sound like a Democrat. And attacking Newt over what went on in Congress, which was a Democratic plot to get back at him because of what he did to Wright, was like acting like a Democrat. What the heck are we doing that for?
It's good advice. All right. I assume at some point there'll be peace made. Maybe you'll have to broker it.
Oh, I hope so, because the objective here is to defeat Barack Obama. And I think national security is a much bigger issue and may still become a much bigger issue than people realize.
I think you're right. No doubt. Mr. Mayor, good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Go Giants.
Oh, what a great game. I picked them by 3. They won by 4.
Yeah, well,
we'll show that prediction to Bob Beckel later.
I was at the game. It was fabulous.
And coming up, Ann Colt is going to be